The 1%er Podcast with Sam Bakhtiar, bringing you the 1% knowledge to help you reach your full potential. Learn what it takes to rise above the 99% and become a 1%er.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 1%er Podcast. This is your host Sam Bakhtiar with my really good friend, mega entrepreneur, one of my first ever mentors, Dan Charlier. Dan, what's going on, my man?
Oh, man, it's great to see you, brother. You're looking sharp as always.
Gosh, man, we were just talking, reminiscing about old days, how we get started, man. I told you off camera, and I'm going to tell you on camera, that a lot of my success is because of you. You were one of my clients many, many years ago, about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember you coming in, and we got started trading together. And some of the conversations that we had, some of the things that you were telling me, just totally expanded my mindset. And I want to talk about that. Yeah. But first, let's talk about you. Let's talk about you. Tell me, where were you born? When did you come to the United States? And tell me your beginnings.
So I was born in Haiti. I'm Haitian.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
Charlier. That's Haitian.
Charlier.
That's Haitian.
Je parle français.
Oui, oui.
So I was born in Haiti, and, when I was born, my mom and dad went through a divorce. And my mom...
How old were you?
I was probably, I think I was 1 or 2 years old at the time.
Okay.
And so my mother had to make some really tough decisions. So my family, the Charlier family in Haiti, is a very prominent family, a lot of doctors, engineers. So my mother went to speak to my grandmother and asked my grandmother on my father's side and asked her, could she watch me, because she wanted to go to the United States so she could set up her lifestyle to send for me.
And just really quick, I know how much your mother loves you. I know she's always in your life. And for her to do that to her baby, imagine how hard it was for her. Like she wanted better for you.
I think about that all the time. Like, especially we have kids.
Yes.
Like I can't, I'm away from my kids for like a week. It's just like my heart's throbbing, right? And which is one of the reasons I have so much respect for her. And then my grandmother said yes. So my mother left Haiti. That was a process in itself just to get out the country.
I bet.
And she came to the U.S. She came to New York, and she started working for a family as a housekeeper. And then she put herself through school. And it took her about 8 years to make enough money to send for me. So I really grew up with my grandmother.
For 8 years?
For 8 years.
That must have killed your mom. Every day she was probably
Yeah. Like literally the first time I met my mom, I was 9 years old. So I came to the U.S. with a picture of my mom. I was on American Airlines, and I had a picture of her because I didn't know what she looked like. And so I remember when the stewardess walked me up to her, and then I looked at the picture, and I knew her name. What's that? Yeah. And then I called her by her name. I said, "Are you Jackie?" She says, "No, I'm your mom."
Oh,
and that was the first time that I met her.
I'm getting emotional, man. I'm getting emotional. Seriously, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was 9 years old.
So 9 years old, you came to a new country.
New country.
You didn't speak English, did you?
No. I didn't speak. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and so that was pretty interesting itself, because there I never been introduced to racism. So when I got to New York, it wasn't just black, white, but you had the Italians, then in the
Haitians,
you had the Jamaicans and the Barbadians. You had all these different things, all these different cultures, and so I didn't know how to speak English. So it was I remember the first time I watched someone speak English, I was watching their mouths speak, and I remember thinking to myself, one day I'm going to speak just like that.
Yeah.
So like growing up and I used to play soccer in Haiti. So that was like my sport. And then I learned how to play basketball. I learned how to play street basketball. Played a lot of street basketball growing up.
Wow, so you came in with a culture shock. It's just like me. I was 11, same thing. I played soccer. I came into a culture shock. You came to Brooklyn. now you're like all these different cultures, all these different things. So tell me from then, how was life? How was life?
I mean, it was, I didn't know any different. I've always had like a great, I was always been optimistic. So my day to day, it was just me and my mom in a little, 800 square foot apartment. So my mom would wake up like at 4:30 in the morning, and she would do like a full blown dinner, right? At 4:30. So I wake up, it's like, she's cooking. And then she would go to work from like 6 o'clock in the morning till like 6 o'clock in the evening. And then she would go to her part-time job till about 11 o'clock at night. So I would get up, catch the train, go to school. I mean, when I was in
Your mom is
school,
making a full-blown dinner for who?
for me.
What the hell?
Yeah, because she wasn't home. So Monday to Friday, I would only see my mom like in the morning for like maybe 10, 15 minutes before she goes to work. And at nighttime, by the time she came home, I was already asleep.
And she made you was fed.
Oh yeah. Like she had a system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She had a system. So I mean, I go to school and all. And one of the things that she instilled in me right from the beginning, she said, because it was really a drug infested area in Brooklyn, and she said, if you ever want to send me through my grave, like shame and guilt, just let me find out you're doing drugs, right?
And you were how old?
I was like 9, 10 years old.
Oh
man.
my God.
Yeah, I was like 9, 10 years. Because once you got out of the apartment,
you're exposed.
You're exposed.
You're exposed.
You're exposed to everything. And then, but in Brooklyn at the time, that you were raised by the community.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my mom would come home if another parent said something that I did something.
Yeah.
It was just the whole neighborhood had their eyes on you. So it was very different. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot growing up the inner city. Part of it is that I knew what I wanted, but I also knew what I didn't want. And I don't think I knew that subconsciously, but yeah.
You grew up like, I don't want this life.
Yeah.
I want it better for myself. Same thing with me. We have so much in common. This is not what I want. This is not what I want for my family. This is not what I want. This is not what I want to be. I want better for myself. And I think that's what drove you and said, have you been in a middle class, family, maybe you don't have the same drive as coming as an immigrant, and all that kind of stuff. Tony Robbins says the worst place to be is in the middle. You know what I mean? That's the worst place to be because, you have enough to be comfortable, but not enough to where you really can do that. And I think, that's what we have in common. So tell me about high school,
excuse me, my high school was fun for me because I had a teacher. I did woodworking in high school. I went to Grady Vocational Tech, and my first mentor is an Irishman. His name was Mr. Quigley. And Mr. Quigley, he was one of those teachers that he just taught you about life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like my first year in woodworking, he never allowed us to use power tools. We literally had to do everything by hand, right? Mm-hmm. And so my second year, he introduced us to the power tools. And I said, oh my God, Mr. Quigley, it's so easy to use these tools. And I said to him, I said, well, why didn't you show this to us last year? And he says, well, Danny, you have to master the fundamentals. He says, because if you had learned with the power tools first, what happens when there's no power?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it was these kind of things. And I remember right before I graduated high school, Mr. Quigley said to me, he says, Danny, you're a perfectionist. You really work on the details. He says, but I want to share something with you. He said, but when you go on a job site, people are going to want things to be done the right way like you do it, but you need to be able to do it in a timely fashion, right? So it was like all these little
It's
lessons.
cool that you're a perfectionist, but you still got to get it done,
Exactly.
If it's perfect, it takes 10 years, doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Just get it done.
So those were defining moments for me. And then right before I graduated high school, he said to me, he says, Dan, he said, I want you to do architectural engineer. He says, you need to be the person on the site with the draft paperwork, the pencil behind his ear, and that's the person that makes all the money. And he was very influential for me because I didn't have a father figure at the time. And then so I graduated high school, and then I went to State University of Farmingdale to study architectural engineering.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah. Okay. And then so, but my mom was working 2 jobs to pay for my school. So I went to Farmingdale. I lived on campus, and I don't know if you've ever lived on campus or you have. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I was having such a blast, Sam. I was just having such a blast in school. But I had this governor inside of my head. I kept thinking, God, my mom's working 2 jobs. I'm having a blast, right?
I feel guilty.
And I felt this guilt, right? And then one day, the school, they were having this program where the graduates from the year before came to speak to the freshmen. And I'm watching the number one guy that had graduated in my field speak. And I was sitting there and someone said to me, man, you got to go talk to this guy, right? So after it was all over, I went straight to him. I said, hey, my name's Dan Charlier. I want to do exactly what you've done. And if you were me, knowing what you know now, what would you have done different and why? And he looks at me, he doesn't even blink. He looks at me and he goes, I would drop out and go get a job. I said, you would drop out and go get a job, but why? And he said, because I did everything they told me to do, right? And I can't get a job. I said, well, why can't you get a job? He says, because they're telling me I don't have any job experience. And I says, well, how are you supposed to get job experience?
Without a job?
Without getting a job. And for some reason, Sam, it absolutely made sense for me. Like, years later, you read Think and Grow Rich. It talks about successful people make decisions quickly and they're very slow to change them. You know what I mean? But I wasn't conscious of that. And I was just like, I always trusted my gut. So I was just like, okay, I'm dropping out. I'm going back to Brooklyn. So I go back to Brooklyn. I tell my mom, school's not for me. So my mom looks at me. She goes, well, we got a problem. And I said, well, what's the problem? She says, well, this is my house. And she goes, if you're not going to go to school, well, you can't live here. You need to figure out what you're going to do. So at that time, I'm like really scared. I'm like, man, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then so there was this guy that lived in my building. There's a Puerto Rican guy that lived in my building that just started an exterminating company. And he had just got the contract for Harlem Hospital. So he finds out that I'm not in school. He goes, hey, Danny, he says, hey, I need an exterminator. Once you be one of my exterminators, I pay you $200 a week. I was like, $200 a week? I said,
I'm in.
Game, right? I said, what do I do? And so you remember those silver cans? So he takes me up to Harlem. I start working there. And man, I learned a lot by working at Harlem Hospital. That was one of my experiences. I go, man, I know exactly what I don't want. And then so one day I'm on a train and I'm going to work, and I see this Marine in a dress blue uniform. And I get this little thought, and he goes, maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll just join the Marine Corps, because I like the uniform. Mm-hmm. But it was just a thought. So then I get home that night, and I said to my mom, I said, Mom, I was on a train today, and I had this idea. And she said, well, what's the idea? And she says, I saw this Marine in a dress blue uniform, and I thought to myself, maybe I'll just join the Marine Corps. And she looks at me, she says, you join the Marine Corps? Right? And then I said, she says to me, she said, do you know how tough the Marine Corps is? And I remember looking at her and saying, Mom, if I can deal with you, I think I can handle the Marine Corps.
Yeah, and Haitian mom.
Oh,
Haitian mom. Yeah.
Very intense.
I met her.
Yeah, I know. So literally the next morning, this is a conversation I had like 10, 11 o'clock at night. The next morning, Sam, I'm hearing my mother on the phone. And she's like, hold on, he's right here. Because, our apartment is so small.
Yeah, 800 square feet.
And then when my mom's pissed, she calls me Danielle. Right? So I have different names. When she needs something, it's Danunu, right? Yeah. When she's being loving, it's Danny. And when she's upset, it's Danielle, right? So all of a sudden I hear, Danielle! And I was like, oh my God.
Oh shit.
I know something, it's just like a trigger, something's wrong, right? So she goes, someone's on the phone for you. So I pick up the phone, I say, hey, this is Dan. And I hear, this is Sergeant so-and-so from the United States Marine Corps. We heard you want to join the Marine Corps. I'm like, we? Who's we? He says, well, your mom called us and told us to come get you. And then at that point, I start to backstep. I'm just like, well, you know, I was just thinking about it.
Snap.
Blah, blah, blah.
Your mom called?
Yeah, she called the recruiter right then and there.
She wanted you out the house, man.
Yeah.
He needs to man up.
Yeah.
She wants you to become a man.
Oh, man. And then the recruiter, what I appreciated, the recruiter was such a great communicator. Because I gave him an objection. I said, well, no, I was just thinking about it. And he's like, well, I know you were thinking about it. The best way for you to think about it, let's think about it together. Why don't you come up to my office? Let's sit down. And it was so non-threatening, so very smooth. And I was
They're good. They're good. The recruiters.
Yeah.
One of my best friends is a recruiter.
Oh, is that right?
He is very, very, like I said, a great communicator.
Yeah. I just felt safe talking to him on the phone. And then so I was like, okay. So I went down and I had a conversation with him. And Sam, the next thing you know, I have my hand in the air, right? So I go back home and my mother says, I got to talk to you. And so we're sitting at the kitchen table, and then we're just like this. And she looks at me. She goes, "I don't think you're gonna make it."
So your mom didn't even believe you want to make it.
No, she was dead serious. She was like,
"I know your mom don't."
Yeah,
They don't
she
do it
was
right
like,
now.
I don't think you're gonna make it, because I had a pattern at the time where I would start and stop a lot.
Yeah.
And she saw that in me.
Yeah.
And she goes, "I don't think you're gonna make it." And I was just like, and she said, "But I want you to remember something. If you don't make it, whether you make it or not, the option of coming back here doesn't exist," right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I left with that thought in my mind. So I remember the first day in boot camp when I went to Paris Island, and the drill instructors, you know, they take the garbage can and they throw it down and they're yelling and screaming. It's like 4:30 in the morning. I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, what did I get
myself into? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But then I had this thought in my mind at the toughest times. I was like, well, I only have two options. I make it or I die.
Yeah.
All the stuff in between, and obviously, you know, I made it through boot camp. And it was, you know, the Marine Corps boot camp, the first phase of training is the most intense.
Would you say that a lot of your success has come from your mother's tough love, mm-hmm. and what Marine Corps still in you as far as discipline, you know, and everything else? Would you say a lot of that, you know, a lot of your work ethic and success come from that, or you know, or no?
It's a double-edged sword, okay. Right? Because, you know, the more I've started meditating, I've been meditating for like 10 years now, right? So you get a chance to reflect a lot and think. The military environment, it's the structure of it is very different than entrepreneurial. So in the military, the leadership there is very different. When I tell you to do something, you don't have no choice. You got to do what I tell you to do, whether at the time. So it's a very different. So when I left the military, I think there was some benefits there that I learned. There was some benefits with my mom, the way her structure. She was always positive, her work ethic, and all these things that I learned. But the challenge for me, the big challenge for me was when I left the military and I went into the civilian sector, right? Because when I went into civilian sector, especially in my business now, is that it's an entrepreneurial. So now it's like, hey, you don't work for me. We're like business partners.
You were an entrepreneur before entrepreneur was a word. You know, I remember because I remember you coming to sign up at the thing. I said, "What do you do?" "I'm an entrepreneur." I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" I was like, I'm serious. You know what I mean? You know, I remember that conversation. I remember he said, "Well, what do you do?" "I'm an entrepreneur." I'm like, "What the fuck is that?" I had to go look it up. You know, I'm dead serious. I think you're the first person to ever said entrepreneur to me. You know, and I'm like, entrepreneur. I mean, this was what in like this was like 2000.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right now, everybody's a fucking entrepreneur. Oh, I'm a fucking, no, you're not a fucking entrepreneur, you know?
Yeah.
So I know you had a highly decorative, career in the Marines. You carried the colors for the president for George Bush and for Bill Clinton. I actually went to the White House and carried the colors from. How did you do that? How did that come about? How does that feel being in the White House now? An Haitian coming from Brooklyn, 800 square foot apartment, and mom says you don't finish anything. You had a pattern. Now you're in a Marine uniform, carrying the color for the president at the White House. How the fuck does that feel?
But you know what? You know what's crazy, Sam? It's just like in telling the story a lot. I've always had a pattern of surrounding myself with the right people, right? So like right when I graduated boot camp, I've always known specifically what I wanted to do. And I remember when I graduated boot camp, I looked at my drone instructors. I said, I want to be a drone instructor. I want to be a Marine Corps drone instructor. I want to do it in 3 years, right? So my first duty station, I check in Quantico, Virginia, and I'm having a conversation with the Sergeant Major. I said, Sergeant Major, my name's Private Charlier. I want to be a drone instructor within 3 years, which means I need to go from private to sergeant in 3 years. Well, it's unheard of, right? And then so because the average Marine, it takes 6-7 years to go from private to sergeant.
I know you're not doing the average.
So, exactly,
we're not doing the average here.
Exactly. So Sergeant Major goes, oh, there's no way you can do it in 3 years. I said, Sergeant Major, there's got to be a way, right? And he goes, no, there's no way. I mean, it's going to take 6-7 years. I said, Sergeant Major, there's got to be a way. And I'm a private. I just came out of boot camp, and this is Sergeant Major, combat veteran, Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been in the Marine 25 years. And he happens to say, he says, well, Charlier, there's something called meritorious promotions. And he goes, but this is the air wing, right? This is the air wing. No one here has ever got, I said, Sergeant Major.
I'm not no one.
That's how I'm going to do it. And he was like, right? So I picked up every rank meritoriously up to corporal, right? So I pick up corporal within 2.5 years. And then crash fire rescue is like, I'm a firefighter, so I'm in a room with a bunch of firefighters. And I'm picking up my rank because I want to be a drone instructor. So I told Sergeant Major, I said, Sergeant Major, what do I have to do to prepare? He says, well, you got to give a 5-minute technical military instruction. They ask you a lot of questions about your job, about the Marine Corps, and the board grades, right? And then so I picked up corporal, and then I went to the career planner. Now, this is in Quantico, Virginia in 88, 89. So I go to career planner. I said, hey, my name is Corporal Charlier. I want you to get my orders ready because I'm going to go down to the drill field. I'm going to be a drone instructor. I want to go to DI school. So the career planner looks at me. The career planner says, well, you're a corporal. They don't take corporals. No. There's a board coming up on Monday, and I'm going to pick up sergeant. I just need you to get the paperwork done, right? so literally that's what happened, right? So I'm in the day room on a Friday afternoon, and my master sergeant police, he puts all the corporals in a room, and he comes up front and he says, hey, there's a board coming up on Monday morning for meritorious sergeant. I want to know if anybody wants to go. So I'm the junior corporal, and everybody's been an NCO for years, right? So I'm trying to play humble, so I stay in the back and I don't say anything because I'm moving up the ranks so fast. And everybody's complaining, oh man, Top, how come we always get things at the last minute? And then, everyone's complaining. And Top goes, so no one wants to go on the board. No one's ready to go. And I stay quiet. I'm in the back. I stay quiet. He goes, okay then, I guess nobody. And I raise my hand, right? And as soon as I raise my hand, Top goes, you again, Charlier? And everybody goes, oh, I guess Charlier's going to go. I said, I'm ready to go, Top. And he goes, you're literally ready to go. I said, I'm ready to go, Top. Right? Because I had prepared myself. Yeah. And then Monday morning, I went and I won the board by unanimous decision. And then I went down to the drill field. And when I went to the drill field, I went to DI school in 91. I trained 6 platoons down at 3rd Battalion. And I had a first sergeant that really liked my work ethic, right? And first sergeant calls me in his office one day, and first sergeant goes, "Hey, Charlier, the Marine Corps is having a competition for the 23rd Color Sergeant Marine Corps. I want to send you up there to compete for it." I said, "First sergeant, Color Sergeant Marine Corps, what the hell's that?" He says, "Well, the Marine Corps has 3 titles that ends with of the Marine Corps. You got the Commandant of the Marine Corps, the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, and the Color Sergeant Marine Corps." I said, "First sergeant, I don't want to be no Color Sergeant Marine Corps." And he goes, "Charlier, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. You're going to compete, right?" So I said, "Okay." So I had no idea what this was, right? And I didn't have any attachments to it because I didn't know whether I wanted to do it or not, right? So what the Marine Corps does at the time, they take all the top Marines from the East Coast, and you have to fit a certain criteria, height, weight, all this stuff, right? They take all the top Marines from the East Coast and all the top Marines from the West Coast, and we go to Marine Barracks at 8th and I to compete for this position. So I check in, it's like 30 of us, right? And the color sergeant at the time is a guy by the name of Sergeant Keck. And Sergeant Keck was a huge runner. So he would run 3 miles, bro, like at 15:30. That's like freaking flying. And at the time for me, I ran 3 miles like at 17:30. So Sergeant Keck, first thing we get out, he goes, "Hey, we're going to go for a run." I said, "Okay." So all of us get out, everybody in pairs of 2s, right? So I see Keck, he's stretching out by himself. So I said, "Hey, Sergeant Keck, who's running with you?" He's like, no, I'm pretty fast. I'm gonna run by myself." I said, "Well, shit, I'm pretty fast too. Why don't we run together?" He said, "No, you don't understand. I'm like really fast." I'm like, "Well, I'm really fast too.
No,
let's run together." So, everybody takes off, and then Keck and I start running. And Sam, I kid you not, I'm looking at this guy's legs, and I'm going to myself, there's no way this guy can keep this pace for 3 miles, right? I said, I'll hold this pace. So I get to the 1.5 mile mark with him, Sam. I can hardly breathe. Like, my lungs is literally coming out my chest. And he looks at me, he goes, "Are you okay?" I was like, yeah. And I'm watching him go up Capitol Hill, and he gets even faster, right? And at this point, my lungs is like blown out. I can't even run. I walk. I'm like the last one I get. I'm the second fastest, but I'm the last one that gets there. And everybody's laughing. And they're like, "Charlier, you don't know that Keck runs 3 miles in like 15." I was like, "Oh man!" Right. So that was my first experience there. And then so they have the leadership boards. But at that stage, everyone is so on top of their game. Mm-hmm. Everyone's really
You're at the top.
Of their game,
You're at the
right?
top.
So Keck and Sergeant Keck is the one that actually makes the decision for who the 23rd Color Sergeant is going to be, right? Because he works directly with the Commandant and with the President. So Keck says to us on the last day, he says, "Hey, they're gonna have a full honors funeral in Arlington National Cemetery. I want everybody to be on a bus, and I want you guys to actually visually see like some of the things that we do." So I don't know if you've ever been to a full honors funeral, but bro, it's one of the most beautiful things.
I've seen it on TV.
Oh my God. So they have the Marine Corps Silent Drill Team, the Drum and Bugle Corps, the Marine Corps Color Guard, the Body Bearers. You would love these guys, right? They got this thing at the gym. Unless you could bench press 300 pounds flat, you can't come in the gym when they're working out. You would love these guys. So the Body Bearers, they actually lift the casket up and they bring it down slowly, right? So it's freezing outside, and so we're on the bus, and I'm watching this, and I'm watching these guys, and like I could see the smoke coming out of their mouths, and I get this thought in my head. I was like, I wonder what it feels like to stand out there. Because I'm on this warm bus, right? All of us are watching on a warm bus. I tell the bus driver, I say, "Hey, open the door, I want to go outside." And he goes, "Well, Keck wants everybody to stay on the bus." I said, "I don't work for Keck." I said, "Open the door and let me go outside." So I go outside and I do the stand. I go out there and I stand for 2 hours in my uniform, just like they were doing, right? I mirrored everything. And when I'm doing it, I'm going, oh my God, this is tough. It's freezing out here. Don't they know that we're out here? But so all this stuff that's going, because when you're standing attention for 2 hours, bro, and it's freezing, all kind of stuff's going in your head. So, you know, they're done and we march back and we get back to the barracks. Sergeant calls, one of the sergeants comes up, he says, hey, Color Sergeant needs to talk to you. And so I go meet with Keck and he says, hey, I got a question for you. Why did you get off the bus and come outside? I said, well, you know, when you're sitting on the bus, it's nice and warm on the bus. It looks pretty cool. But I wanted to know what it actually felt like to actually stand out there. And he goes, well, what did you think? I said, it's a prestigious billet, but man, this is freaking hard, right? Because it's a different challenge, right? And then he goes, you're my replacement.
That was it, because you went right there and you showed that you wanted it bad and you wanted to check it out. You touched it.
And
That's
I
amazing.
don't even know that my intention was that I wanted it. I think my intention was, it was just like,
You want to experience it.
I want to experience it. You know what I mean?
And that,
it's almost like these beautiful cars in your beautiful home, right? And there's some people that would walk in here and be, man, like this be cool to have. But then they don't know the process of what it takes. See, they see the end, but there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Okay, so let's talk about, you got out of Marine Corps, right? You got out of Marine Corps and now you're in a civilian life. You know, you met someone, you know, did you go right to work at all, or did you meet Ed Milet? What happened right after that?
Well, it's you know, after doing 5 years of special duty, right? The Marine Corps says to me, said, hey, you can go anywhere you want to go. And we used to do shows in California. So I said, I want to go to California. So I got stationed at El Toro in Santa Ana, California, right, as a firefighter. So I went from doing 5 years of special duty at the highest prestigious positions, right? Now I'm back to my MOS as a firefighter. Like literally, Sam, after we check out the trucks and do all this stuff, I'm in a day room now, like a day room, and the highlight of the day is that you remember Jerry Springer when Jerry Springer was hot? The highlight of the day, Jerry Springer come on 11. I'm in a room with grown men and they're like, Jerry. And I'm thinking to myself,
that's not what I want to do.
I'm thinking to myself, no, this ain't my life. This is not how I see it, right? So we used to work 24 hours on, 24 hours off, 48 hours on, 48 hours off. So I always had a part-time job. So I would do construction on my days off. I would work 10 hours a day, make $100 and be fired up. Then I was hanging out at a club in Laguna Beach called the White House. And
I know what that's at.
Yeah, on Sunday nights they used to have reggae nights on Sunday nights. So me and a couple of buddies of Marine Corps, we're hanging out, and it's like 1 o'clock in this morning, and this lady comes up to me. She goes, "I've watched your mannerism tonight, and if you were in business with me part time, you make $5,000 to $7,000 part time." I'm like, part time? She says, yeah. And then so we're leaving. And she gets into her car. She was driving a Mercedes-Benz V12 at the time. I was like, man, that's a really nice car, right? And she says, make sure you call me. You got what it takes, right? And at the time, I'm hanging out with my buddies. And you got
a big body Benz. You're doing something right?
Right? And at the time, I got a little Honda Civic LS, 17-inch rims, tinted windows. Like, we're 5 deep in the car, right? We're all,
at the White House.
Yeah. And we're all broke, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And for some reason, man, I got in the car. I was just like, man, it's probably one of these deals, blah, blah, blah.
Let me just call you.
No, I didn't. And then I didn't have the right people around me. So when I said that, and my buddies were like, oh, yeah, it's probably one of these deals, blah, 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 all this stuff.
Yeah, you're in a Honda Civic. You don't got that kind of belief.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But 6 months later, I'm frustrated at my job. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I remember this lady said that to me. And I thought to myself, what do I have to lose?
Exactly.
Let me blow her a call.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, and what do I have to lose, right? So I give her a call and I said, hey, my name's Dan Charlier. And she goes, I remember exactly who you are. And she goes, I've always wondered why you didn't call me. And I was like, well, I've been busy. When you broke,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So she's like, I always want, and so she invites me to this meeting, right? And so I go to this meeting, and I think my mindset just wasn't there. So I walked in, I was like, oh my God, everybody was friendly, everyone was excited. So automatically I thought to myself, okay, this must be one of these multi-levels, this must be one of these scams. And I went home and I'm talking to my ex-wife. And I said, I went to take a look at some company, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm telling her about it. And she had been working for a company called Consumer Portfolio Services in Irvine. Right? And she had been telling me about this lady that she works the front desk with, how her husband had just got started with this business. They had a 5-year plan, blah, 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 all this stuff. They were very successful. She was just working there temporarily. So she goes to work the next day. She's having a conversation with this lady. And she said, oh my God, girl, let me tell you, my husband went to some multi-level, blah, blah, all this stuff. And the lady goes, well, what's the name of the company? And then she says the name of the company, and she goes, oh my God, my husband is a broker with that company. And then she says these words, right? She says, let me get his number. I will have my husband give him a call, right? So that lady happens to be Christiana.
Yeah, I've already put it together.
Christiana Maulet. So that's why I always give Christiana Maulet all the love, because
she's such a sweetheart.
She's the one that got my number.
Got it.
Right? So Maulet calls me on a Sunday night, bro. He calls me on a Sunday night, and he's like, hey, this is Ed Maulet. You don't know me, but our wives work together. I heard a lot of great things about you. My company's growing and expanding. I'm looking for some sharp people. And I said to him, I said, look, I took a look at your company, and I'm not interested. So he starts laughing.
Said that to him?
Yeah, and he starts laughing on the phone.
Oh, I can so imagine what he said now.
So he starts laughing on the phone, and he goes, of course you're not interested. How could you be interested in something you know nothing about? He said, I heard a lot of great things about you. And he goes, Dan, I'm not going to let this opportunity pass you by. Matter of fact, where are you right now? I'm physically coming to see you.
Damn.
And when he said that to me with such certainty, I was like, okay, right? And then so he literally drove from his office, right, on a Sunday night, bro, all the way down to the base, right? And Sam, I kid you not, within the first couple of minutes of him and I talking, I didn't understand what he did. And I said to him, I says, look, if you can show me how to make an extra $2,000 to $3,000 a month, I'm not getting out the Marine Corps. You cut me, I bleed green. I'm going to do this for 30 years, right? And he says, well, why do you need to make an extra $2,000 to $3,000 a month? I says, well, my mom's still working 16, 17-hour days. If I can make enough money to send to my mom, because at the time, the most I could send my mom was like $130 a month, right, from the military. And he says to me, so you want to make an extra $2,000 to $3,000 a month to take the financial pressure off your mom? He says, yeah. He said, well, I can show you how to do that. I said, okay. And it was like, literally, it was like a 10-minute conversation, right? And then that's how I got started, but I got started on a part-time basis, right? And then so, they say that, there's a saying that Tony Robbins says, proximity is power.
Absolutely. One of my favorite quotes.
You know what I mean? And so what happened for me at that point is my associations changed, right? So when I was in the Marine Corps,
you went to a different pond.
Yeah.
You went from a different pond.
Yeah, because what happened was when I was surrounded by the Marines, I wasn't really happy, Sam, but I wasn't really unhappy. It's what we talked about. It was just like being lukewarm.
You're in a no man's zone.
Exactly, right? But when I started spending time with Maulet,
it started blowing your mind.
Here's what became clear to me. What became crystal clear to me was my life sucked, period. And like literally, period. So little conversations, I would say, like normal conversations I would have with, everyday folks, I'd be like, yeah, my boss said that, he goes, Charlier, stop. You realize you're 33 years old. You got 2 kids, you're calling another man boss. He's like, and I was like, well, everybody has a boss. Damn, everybody doesn't have a boss. You got a boss, right? Uh-huh. So it would be these kind of conversations.
That just blow your mind. I remember having these kind of conversations with you when we were training,
Yeah.
So you paid it back, and I know you have like thousands of people under you that you have mentored, throughout the years. And doesn't it feel good now that your success And now you have mentored so many people now to become multi-millionaires. So what Ed has done for you, you have done for thousands of others.
Yeah.
And help them, not through your mentoring and through your leadership and things like that. One of my favorite quotes from Tony Robbins is, he says that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure.
Wow.
We know, Dan, that you're a self-made multi-millionaire. You live in Beverly Hills. You drive Bentleys. We know that about you.
Right.
You know what I mean? But all of that wouldn't mean anything if you haven't helped anyone along the way.
That's right.
And that's what you have done, man. And I want to go back to when me and you, I was your personal trainer, and you were working out, and it was like mind blowing, because I came from I was at the peak of my bodybuilding career. All I wanted to do is have a gym and do my bodybuilding, and you had some serious conversations, man. I remember one time, I don't know if you remember this. I remember one time, and there was a guy who was a manager at a car dealership, Edgar. Do you remember Edgar?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
I remember one time, he had like one of his best months selling cars, but he was working 70, 80 hours a week. He was dead tired. He was overweight, out of shape. He was unhealthy, and he was on the thing, and he was like, yeah, man, I made 20 grand last month. And, and you looked at him and goes, oh man, I don't know how you can live off of that. You know what I mean? And you weren't trying to be a dick. You were trying to expand his mind. You know what I mean? Because somebody's best month is somebody's worst month. Wow. I remember, at the time that, my goal was to make $100 grand a month. And for years that was my biggest goal. I'm like, when I make $100 grand a month, oh my God, man, Jesus Christ, man, that's like the ultimate. Like, who's going to? I didn't know, right? And when I made that, I remember pulling on the side of the road. I know exactly where I was. I was in Pomona. Yeah. I pulled off on the side of the road and called every friend and everybody that I told I go to for years that, oh my God, I made $100 grand a month. I cannot believe I made $100 grand a month. I made $100 grand a month. And now your mind expands. And now if I made $100 grand a month, man, I think I would just like, it'll be a really bad month. Yeah. It's like it's kind of like, you bench pressing 300, now you bench press 135. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So those kind of things that you've taught me, man, a lot of these conversations that we had, I remember, we talked about this before. You came up to me and said, Sam, why don't you have more of these gyms? And I said, well, what do you mean? I don't want to have more of these gyms. I want to work out, and I want to get on stage. I want to work out, I want to get on stage, And now today, I have 110 franchises across the country, and in Mexico, we're international now. Wow. But at the time, I wasn't hearing that. And they always say when the student is ready, the teacher appears. You were always there.
Yeah.
You planted the seed. And next thing you know, that seed, sooner or later,
I felt the same way. I felt the same way about you. I mean, because when I went to, like we were talking about earlier, is that I always, there's a saying that says sometimes the best way to watch someone is actually not to look at them, right? And so I remember I saw you working out for like 2 weeks at LA Fitness. And I never had a conversation with you, but I was always watching you. And I was always, because I look at people that are example in their field. So I was always watching you. I was on the treadmill. I was watching you all the time. And then one day I came to the gym. You weren't there. So I called the staff. I was like, hey, man, where's that bodybuilder that everybody is always giving? Like you were always helping everyone, right? And then he was like, oh, he opened his gym. He opened his own private gym around the corner. I said, well, what's the name of it? And it's a Fitness Concept. I said, oh, okay. So I went to your gym. I remember that day. I walked in. I introduced myself to you. And then you said, do you want to be a member? Because this is private. And then I asked you, I said, I would like to be a member. But first, what I like to do is I like to take a couple of days to come here. And then you gave me a pass to come there for like 2 weeks. So every morning I came into your gym and I watched all your trainers. I spent 45 minutes on the treadmill, but I was watching everything. And then I remember I came up to you and I said, Sam, I definitely want to join the gym. I want to pay for personal training. I only have one question for you. And then you were like, what's the question? I says, I want to work out with you. And then for me, the reason, because your trainers were awesome, they were all in shape, but the reason that I wanted to work out with you is because I wanted to also pick your mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times what happens in a mentee and mentor relationship is that from an energy standpoint, we're coming from a space of what can I take?
Yeah.
Where instead of becoming exchanging a value.
Yeah.
So as we were exchanging value, I was getting just as much value from you and your mindset, because to compete at the space that you were competing at, you know, that's a certain mindset.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the conversations I would leave there, I mean, obviously you kicked my butt in the gym, but I would leave there, I would be charged, you know, and I think those were very healthy conversations.
Yeah, you've always been very optimistic, very giving, and you've really have dropped so much nuggets, knowledge bombs, you know, for me and my career and everybody. And I know you've done that so for millions and millions and millions of others. You know what I mean? So, you know, so over the years, I know that you're big on surrounding yourself with greatness. You know, I know the day that you called me and said, hey, you know, I got Evander Holyfield at the house. Hey, do you want to come over? I'm like, what the fuck you mean you want to come over? Of course, that's like one of my childhood heroes. I want to say Evander Holyfield, you know what I mean? So I couldn't get in the car fast enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you know, and you know, I remember, you know, you told me, he goes, you can do anything, just don't ask him for autograph. You know what I mean? You know, and I didn't want to be a rookie, you know, I'm like, yeah, you got it, you know what I mean? So I came in there, man, I'm sitting in front of Evander, you know, Evander Holyfield, I'm sitting in front of him, I'm going like this, ain't this a bitch? This guy, I've been following him I've watched every one of his fights, and now I'm sitting in front of him. Oh my, I'm like literally like I can't even talk. You know, I'm just trying to figure out what I'm just like, you know. And the funny thing is, the night before, I was watching the Evander Holyfield fight.
Are you serious?
Yeah, the night before.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, the night before, I was watching Evander Holyfield versus George Foreman.
Oh,
you know,
that was a vicious. You know, Holyfield sends me a text every morning, like at 4 o'clock in the morning. And he sent me that fight. I watched that. Oh my God, you talking about exchanging some blows?
Bro, and so I was trying to figure out what to talk, because I was very awkward. I was so nervous. I was right in front of Evander Holyfield. I'm going to look at him. I'm like, I don't want to act like I'm starstruck, but what am I going to do? I'm going like, you know, what am I going to do? You know, so I'm like, what am I going to talk to him about? And I said, oh, Evander, I just watched one of your fights last night. You know, he goes, which one? Which one? I'm like, the one with George Foreman. He goes, oh man. He goes, out of all the fights you could have watched, you watched that one? He goes, man, I hit him like 17 times with everything I had. You know, the guy didn't even feel it. He goes, he hit me one time. He goes, I felt like my jaw broke. You know what I mean? And he told me, you know, how, you know, he was able to finally beat him. But he goes, man, the way George Foreman hit him, he goes, he never felt a punch like that. Yeah. You know? And he goes, he hit him like, he kept hitting him, because the guy wouldn't even go away. Oh you know? God. And oh my God, man, he was talking, you know, we talked about, you know, him versus Mike Tyson, you know, everything that happened. And oh my God, man, I'm telling you right now, that time I'll cherish forever. You gave me the opportunity to have a conversation with Evander Holyfield, and I was like, this is surreal. To this day, I remember the words and everything. I remember touching Evander Holyfield, and he was like a rock. And he was like, oh, he's up in his 50s by then already, you know what I mean? Right. And I said, Evander, I'm like, how do you stay in such a great shape? He goes, look, man, I know if I stop, it's so much harder for me to start back up. Yeah. So I just don't stop. Yeah. And that was a nugget for me. Yeah. And that was a big nugget for me, because you know what? He is in great shape, because he knows that once you slack off, it's easy to slack off. It's easy to not get back in. A lot of people say, hey, I'm going to take a little bit of time off. That little bit of time off is a little more. And next thing you know, they're totally out of shape. They lost everything. They're unhealthy. Right. So that's why now every single day, no matter what, I make time to exercise. It's 1 hour, my time. If I can't lift, I go for a walk. I do something. Right.
You've been like that consistent. You've been like that consistent for a long time. I was thinking about that the other day. I remember when you first started working out at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I went with you. I think I went with you maybe a couple of times, because I was living in Corona at the time. And I'm driving my car, and I get pulled over by the cops, like at 3:30 in the morning, right?
He thinks he's drunk.
And then my windows are tinted and all this stuff. And so, I let my windows down and I got my hands on the steering wheel and the cop comes over and the cop goes, let me see your ID. I give him all my ID and all this stuff. And the cop comes over and he goes, I got a question for you. And I go, okay, what's the question? He goes, it's 3:30 in the morning. What are you doing on the street? I think I was on Pipeline. What are you doing on the street 3:30 in the morning? And I looked at the cop. I says, it's crazy that you asked me that, because I was asking myself the same question. And I said, somehow
what the fuck am I doing,
my buddy Sam, and I think you had a couple of cops that was working out with you. My buddy Sam works out like at 4 o'clock in the morning. And it was like, and we both, me and the cop just started laughing, right? And he's like, I have a good time at the gym. Yeah, it was a good time.
One of my other buddies, like he was coming from LA to meet with me, he drove all the way from LA to meet with me. And he said, Sam, the only problem is I got to watch drunk drivers at that time. You know what I mean? So when people are leaving the club and we're working out, man, and that's how, you have a choice in life.
Yeah.
You have a choice in life. What do you want to do?
Right.
Most people out there drinking, coming out from the clubs, and now, are you going to, work on yourself?
Right.
One thing that I've known from you all these years is that you are so big on personal development. Mm-hmm. You're so big on personal development. When did you become a fan of personal development? Because gosh, man, ever since I've known you, you've been into books, and every time I talk to you, you just drop knowledge bombs, and I've learned every single time I'm with you, I learned something. Mm-hmm. When did you become a fan of that? When did you say, what, I'm all in, I got to better myself all the time? And most people at your level, they're like, oh, I made it already. I don't need to do anything else. But you're constantly pushing the envelope. Yeah. You're constantly staying hungry. You're constantly bettering yourself in all areas of life. When did that become something that you said, this is what I'm dedicated to?
I think one of my earlier conversations with Malet, and he asked me a question. He says, Dan, do you know the difference between you and I? And at the time I'm in the Marine Corps, right? And I was like, yeah, I know the difference. You make a lot more money than me. He said, no, that's not what it is. And he says to me, Charlier, you're good, but you cannot explain to me why you're good. Because you haven't worked on yourself enough. You haven't read enough books. You haven't become a student. And then so I said, okay. So I started, one of the first books that I read was Think and Grow, the Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. And
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Those books, right? So as I started reading those books, I started going, oh my God, I do that. Oh my God, I do that. Oh my God, I do that. And I started connecting the dots. And I realized that I can associate with so many different people through their books. Mm-hmm. You follow me? Mm-hmm. And so I realized, and it says that in the back of Think and Grow Rich, right? There's a saying that in the military that goes, who motivates the motivator, right? Well, the motivator is self-motivated, right? So what I found is that every time that I learn something, right? I learn something new, I notice how it shifts my energy. I go, oh man, that's good. And then I go apply it. I go, ooh, that's really good. Mm-hmm. And then I'll go, oh man, I need to teach this. Mm-hmm. You follow me? Yeah. So I've always liked to, in my business, it's all system, right? So you're constantly being creative you're constantly saying the same stuff, right? So I'm constantly finding out, so I like to get stories that illustrates a point, right? And then, the whole saying, stories sell, facts tell, right? You know what I mean? So I like reading and learning and audios and now listening to different podcasts and biographies and all this stuff. But then when I get that information, I go, okay, how do I get that to apply it to something specific?
Yes.
And get this person to link that and they go take a specific action.
Look, you can tell me a concept and I will forget it. You'll tell me a story, I remember it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And knowing you, I know you are one of the greatest storytellers, because you grab a concept and you have a story behind it.
Right.
And like we talked about, some of the conversations that we have, I remember like it was there. And it's not because of the concept, it's because of the story. It's always been about the story, because you put it in a way that people can understand and comprehend and be able to apply to a daily life. A concept, you can't just put it in there unless it's a story. You always remember the story. So if I had a dad like you growing up, I would have been a billionaire.
I don't know. I go back and forth with that because I don't know if that's something that's taught or you have it inside of you.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right.
You know what I mean?
You're right.
Because it's just like anything else. The people that are close. I remember. I don't know if you've ever watched Jake's, TD Jake's.
Yeah, I've seen him a couple of times.
I remember Jake said that. Jake was talking about his congregation, and he said, people fly me all around the world, and they pay me millions of dollars to speak, right? And I tell them the same stuff that I tell my congregation.
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah. They go out and do it, and the people that I love the most, that I share it, they're like, oh yeah, we've heard this before. I think there's this parent death.
Yeah. No, you're right.
That goes on.
No, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. I've had students. Teach students how to grow their businesses and things like that. I can have 20 students and I can teach them the same exact thing. And it's always, I think in life there's always a bell curve. There's always a bell curve. There's a few of them that will take and make millions from it. A few that take and do great with it. Some good, and some people just don't do shit with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm sure you've experienced that in your business.
Yeah.
When you have all these agents underneath you.
Yeah.
You want them to succeed. You don't bet. You know what? They gotta want it. They gotta be able to apply it and be able to do that. And
I remember one of my mentors. He just retired. And I remember asking him, we were doing a leadership retreat, and I said, and he had been doing this for like 40 years. And I said to him, if you had to pick one thing that frustrates you the most about what you do, what is it? And he didn't even blink. He says, Dan, you don't know how many times people have sat down with me and they ask me, what do I need to do? And I give them with exactness what they need to do, and they go do something completely different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like I think the human nature aspect of things is understanding human nature, and having the EQ is extremely important.
100%, man. And going back to your children, I think part of the reason you are where you are now is because you grew up poor. You saw your mom struggle. You saw some things and you say, you know what? I don't want that, right? I don't want that, and I want better for myself. And that's the same exact reason, Tim Grover talks about it in his book, Relentless. You have a dark side, you know what I mean? And you use that dark side to your advantage, to make something out of yourself. You say, you know what? I don't want this. I'm not going this. I'm not doing that. Now I see your children. I see you on all over Instagram. They're flying, everywhere, and they're in Beverly Hills and the montage, and doing this, and which makes my heart happy. And I do the same for my children, And what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that are they going to have the same drive as us? Or I'm asking you that because I want to know. For me, sometimes I wonder, if I'm handicapping them, or am I inspiring them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think for me, I've had these conversations with, it's funny, James Lasseter and I. James Lasseter is Will Smith's business partner and Jay-Z's business partner. And he's a member of the Grand Havana Room in Beverly Hills, and we were talking about this specific topic. And what's interesting is that growing up in the inner city in the 80s, there were certain skill sets that I needed to have that I don't think my kids, I know they're not going to need those same skill sets. Like, I'll give you an example. When I would get off the train to go from school, right? I would take my keys, and I automatically would take my keys and put it in my hand like this, right, with my keys out.
In case you get an altercation.
At any time, I could get jumped.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like someone asked me a couple years ago, they say, hey, is your car bulletproof? I was like, where the hell am I going to be where my car need to be bulletproof? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not rolling in those type of name. I just not.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yeah.
So I think our kids now with technology, they're so much smart. They have access to so much. When I grew up, we had an encyclopedia. You know, they go, if you want to keep a secret, put it in the book, right?
Yeah.
So,
money.
Right. And then, so you were told certain things, right? You were told certain things, and then you just believed it because someone told you. And if you asked why, it was a form of disrespect.
Yeah.
Well, in today's world, technology, I mean, my kids are so bright. They have access to so much. I was looking at my son Danny. He's 11. His passport has 11 international stamps. You know what I mean? So I think the skill sets that they need now, I think that what I found for me is the best thing that I can do for them is give them a lot of love, spend a lot of quality time from them, ask them the right questions, you know, like things that we don't think about. You go, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? Well, if you just think about that question, what do you want to do when you grow up? That means that I'm telling you, you're going to have a job. I want to be a police officer. I want to be this, which there's nothing wrong with this, right? But then I asked them, I said, Danny, what problem that you see out there that you would like to create a solution for?
Nice.
You follow me?
Nice.
So now
that's
that
the right
triggers,
questions.
Right? Because money is the byproduct of, you know what?
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's different conversations. So when they ask me questions, like he would ask me a question about something, I said, like, Danny, why are you asking me? Figure it out. Because they know how to do it.
Yeah.
Like these kids, they remember the old Atari games and all of this stuff. You're trying to figure out how to, these kids, like, they're so creative. I mean, they have YouTube videos to teach them how to play games, and they know how to get to all of that stuff. So when he comes and asks me that question, I go, well, Danny, you know what? Why don't you do a little research and come back and tell me how it works? And they go boom, 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 within seconds. Yeah. So the skill sets that they need, I think with them is more a lot of love. You pour a ton of belief.
And ton of time and good questions.
Not just time, but the quality of the time that you spend with them.
Yeah, I like the way you phrase that question. So what problem would you like to solve? You know, I love that. I'm going to use that. Yeah. You know, because like I said, that's a question that, you know, I'm asking for me. Yeah. You know, and I'm sure a lot of people who've, you know, because they usually say, wealth skips a generation, but it doesn't have to. Yeah. It doesn't have to.
The other thing is when they say, they usually say wealth, who's they?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes we, where did we get that information from? So, you know what I mean? It's so a lot of times I start, like the other, like a couple of weeks ago, someone said to me, well, word on the block is, I said, well, what block? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like so sometimes
you have to question
do
that.
Stuff habitual.
Yeah, you always been a guy who questioned the patterns. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, just because someone says, oh, what do you mean? You know, exactly. Right. You've always been that. You know, you don't take anything face value. Yeah. You know, you're like, hey, who says who according to who? Right. And I always appreciate that from you, and I always learn that from you. You know, to be able to do that, man. So Danny, you know, self-made multimillionaire. You know, came here. You didn't see your mom for 8 years because your mom sacrificed coming here. You know, by the way, how is she doing?
Oh, she's doing awesome, man. Good. She's doing awesome. Good. She's actually coming up next month.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You know, live in Beverly Hills. Beautiful family, beautiful children. You know, you have everything going for you. You know, what keeps you hungry?
You know, what keeps me hungry is the desire to close the gap and become happier, right? And for me, what I found was that if I'm not growing,
gosh, you're going to say the same thing I've always been saying.
You know what I mean? If I'm not growing,
yeah.
right? So it's not about the things, because
Yeah.
the things is like, it's cool. Once you get it, you're like, oh my God, that's cool, I got it. But it's not what gets me up.
You know what, Dan, you just nailed it. I was just having this conversation this morning, and I always have this conversation. It's this, I can live in a one-bedroom apartment, but as long as I know I'm growing, I'll be happy.
Right.
Okay? Or I can live in this mansion. If I'm thinking that I'm staying the same and I'm not progressing, I'll be depressed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like you said, it's not about, getting the material stuff. Look, the stuff that you see in this garage and all that kind of stuff, this was a goal as growing up as a kid. You look at this Lamborghinis in front of us. One day, the mansion is something like, one day. But when you achieve it, you're like, okay, I got what I want. This and that. I mean, what is next? I always tell people this: if I get $100 million check tomorrow, nothing's going to change for me. I'm still going to get up at 3:30 in the morning, go to the gym at 4. I'm still going to do the same thing. What am I going to do? Buy a bigger house than this? This is everything I need. Buy a better car? I have everything that I want. So at that time becomes, how can I become better? How can I help more people and have more impact? And a lot of people don't understand that. Don't understand that. And you're passion driven. I don't know if you watched the documentary with Ronnie Coleman. Have you watched it on Netflix?
Oh, I was going to tell you about it. I love that documentary.
I just watched it a couple of days ago for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just, I don't Netflix,
Yeah.
So the other day we were going, me and wifey had bronchitis, and she's like, let's watch this. So I was watching it, and this is funny because when I met Ronnie Coleman the first time, he was signing autographs. He was getting ready for Mr. Olympia. I'm like, hey, Ronnie, how you doing? This was at his peak of his career. And he goes, I'm doing good, man. He goes, yeah, but, I'd rather be at the gym, than signing autographs, you know what I mean? And he truly loved working out. Yeah. He truly loved eating chicken breast. It wasn't for something that he wanted to make money on or something that he was doing. He truly loved it, right? And then here, 20-some years later, I'm watching a documentary. The guy had 6 back surgeries, hip surgeries. The guy is limping, but yet he still goes to the gym at 4:30 in the morning because that's his passion. That's his passion. He wants to progress. He wants to work out and things like that. And your passion is to progress. Somebody asked me earlier, he goes, how do you avoid burning out? And I said, well, if you're burning out, maybe it's not your passion. Because if you're pursuing your passion, if you're going after your passion, how can you be burned out? Because that doesn't even seem like work.
Well, the 2 things. One, I don't know if you know this, but Arnold Schwarzenegger is actually a member of the Grand Advance Room too.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So Arnold, Coleman, you remember, he won, and then he competed in the Arnold Classics. And the reason that he competed for the Arnold Classics, right? Because they were like, what if you lose, blah, 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 all this stuff. Yeah. You're Mr. Olympia and all this stuff. He says, they asked him, well, why did you compete in the Arnold Classic? He says, because I always wanted a Hummer, and Arnold was giving a Hummer out. Can you imagine that? Yeah. It shows you that people will do incredible things for recognition. And I love his humility, when he speaks. I love that. When I was watching him on his documentary, and I was like, this guy has so much that he can be bitter about.
Oh my God!
Right?
I mean,
and he's so optimistic and so humble and so. I was just like, wow, this is freaking. And he doesn't tell a story in a way where he's looking for people to feel sorry for. You know what I mean?
No.
It was just like, I really like that.
I had Sean Ray here a week ago.
Okay.
And he said, Ronnie will do it all over again.
Yeah.
He will do it all over again. And then, you saw in the documentary, he said the only regret he has, he didn't squat 800 pounds 5 times instead of 2 times. You know what I mean? So, Dan, for those people who don't know you, where can they find more about you?
You have my Instagram, Dan Charlier, Daniel Charlier. You have my Facebook, and then also I have www.dancharlier.com.
Awesome, man. Well, Dan, you're a great inspiration. Before we're going to, say goodbye, I want to go over some pictures with you.
Yes.
All right, and I want you to quickly talk about some of these pictures, some of these memories.
Okay.
Okay. So what is this?
Oh wow, this is it's funny. The picture to the left is President Bush Sr. I didn't tell you about that, but I was a platoon sergeant for the Marine Corps Silent Drill Team, which is the #1 drill team in the world. And then we did a show in Pennsylvania, and George Bush Sr. came over to us and was congratulating us, telling us that this was one of the best shows that he's ever seen. The picture to the right there, you know who that is.
Yeah.
And he actually was having some challenges with the football team at Notre Dame.
Yeah, Lou.
And Lou was really good friends with General Monday. And General Monday and I when I was a color sergeant in the Marine Corps, I worked directly with the Commandant. So General Monday asked the silent drill team to go to Notre Dame. So we did a private performance for their football team. And then we talked to them about being disciplined and all of that stuff. So that was, that seemed like so long ago. I think that was 1990. Yeah, these pictures are 1995.
Ed had Lou talk in our mastermind.
Yeah.
And wow, he's full of wisdom, and he's funny.
Yes.
He is so funny. Okay, and these are your baby boys?
Yeah, that's Matthew, Preston, and Danny. These are my big boys. Yeah, my big guys.
Gosh, man, what a beautiful family.
Yeah. This picture right here. This is my mom. This is my grandmother, and this is my mom when she made the decision that she was going to leave Haiti to come to the U.S. And that's me right there. And that's my grandmother that raised me, that we just talked about.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? Look at the fire in her. She's like 22 years old. This right here. I moved to LA 7 years ago. 4 years ago, I got recognized for Vanguard magazine in the top 50 most influential leaders in Los Angeles.
Wow. And cover of magazines, Vanguard, and cover of Finance magazine.
Yeah, Finance Leadership. Our company did an entire magazine for all the leaders and all of that stuff. Yeah, that goes good times. This is my baby, my two babies, Sophia, the love of my life, and my daughter. You haven't met my daughter yet.
Not yet.
We gotta do a double date. So this was just Easter. That just happened a couple days ago, and Amanda Jacqueline Charlier, she's like 10 weeks old now.
Oh my God.
Yeah, new beginnings,
Wow.
really fired up, really excited.
How excited are you about being a new dad?
Oh my, like 3 years ago, I said I wanted to have a little daughter, you know what I mean? And it's seeing her, and she's so vibrant, she's so, like her mother's like straight fire, right? So she's so vibrant. I'm so excited. And then her brothers are really excited too, you know what I mean? So I love kids, just love kids.
Well, you've always been a true one percenter. For me, a true one percenter is someone who's always progressing in 5 areas of life, which is faith, family, fitness, finance, and fun. And we know you can do that, man. Dan Charlier, brother, I can't believe when we first met that we would be here 20 years later.
Yeah.
It's just been an honor and pleasure having you on the show. It's a privilege being your friend and being able to have your cell phone number, be able to text you whenever I need advice. And truly, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for being such an inspiration and a mentor to me throughout the years, and really, really helping me change my mindset when I wasn't even aware of some things. So thank you for being here today. And guys, this is it. Dan Charlier came here as a Haitian, 9 years old. Mother left her with the grandma for 8 years for a better opportunity. And man, has he done that already. He's a self-made multimillionaire. Not only a self-made multimillionaire, but he's helped thousands of people, become financially free. And now he's here with us. Make sure you tune in to iTunes. Make sure you tune in to YouTube and all of our channels to watch this video.